Last night on MasterChef Australia,
One slip up and you're gone.
the blue team faced elimination in a basic skills test.
You don't want to be in the bottom two, you need to spice it up.
And Sky said farewell to her MasterChef dream.
C'est la vie. I've had such a good time, I really have.
Tonight, it's time to learn from the pros in another masterclass.
What more can you ask for?
Gary and George put their spin on steak and kidney. Kylie Kwong drops by to serve up her spicy eggplant. And we finish up with a treat from Darren Purchese.
Oh my gosh.
Plus, Cheese Master Will Start helps you get to know your cheese
The more they stink, the better they are.
and shows you how to impress at your next dinner party.
He's the big cheese.
The great thing about, Fridays is masterclass. It's your time to sit there and have Gary and George give you some points and cook for you.
Masterclass is about consolidating your knowledge, about filling in the gaps where you might have slipped up during the week and trying to take your dishes from where they are to the next level.
Welcome to Masterclass. Some smiley faces in front of us. This is when George and I take over the kitchen and teach you something new. This week, we've got something special lined up. We've got some fantastic guests coming in to cook some truly amazing and delicious food. It'll blow you away, trust me. It's been another huge week of stress and drama.
It was a jam-packed week, an absolutely massive one. Peter, Joanne, Sky and Callum ended up in the pressure test.
Oysters overcooked, onions are undercooked.
You're not happy?
I'm not happy at all.
Unfortunately, Peter's disappointing effort
Peter, you're eliminated.
saw him leave this competition.
Jonathan and Sky found themselves in an elimination round.
I've written garam masala.
The correct name was cloves. And Sky went home. Alvin, did you expect Sky to go home? You were so close to her.
No, I didn't expect her to go home so soon. She's been such a source of strength, and it's just strange not having her. I just half expect her to, turn up.
It's sad, no doubt about it, but you know what? That's the way the cookie crumbles, and we have to move on. In this week's vegetarian invention test, the core ingredient was goat's cheese. So, two of you will be spending an absolutely brilliant day with cheese expert Will Stud. He's an award-winning author and host of his own cheese show, Cheese Slices. The first person that we're going to send is Callum. Why, Callum? I think you know. That awful cheese bomb that was unpalatable. It's raw. The second person is, and for the simple fact, I think this person needs a little bit of inspiration, and she deserves it. Shani. Hey. Right, Shani, Callum, off you go. Go and enjoy yourself. It will be an absolutely cracking day. Enjoy.
We will. I haven't gone on one of these private masterclasses for ages now, and I don't know a whole lot about fromage, so I'm extremely excited to have an insight from such an expert.
First up in Masterclass, we're going to recap the mystery box. Now, of course, that was all about the steak and the kidney.
Today I've got a liver pate.
You're making like a liver pate, but using kidneys instead of liver.
Because a few of you had problems with the kidney and weren't sure how to use it, George and I are going to incorporate it into a sexy little steak sandwich with caramelised onion and parsley puree and pomme souffle. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the caramelised onions. I've got some little baby onions, and what I've done is I've just clipped the root off, so we'll pop those in. The reason we're keeping them whole is because they develop a really lovely sort of saturated flavour as they caramelise. So I'm going to put a couple of bay leaves in with these onions and a little bit of thyme. And then, George, we're just going to put in a few big cloves of garlic. And they will cook before the onions, but you can pull them out and just pop them on a plate and allow the onion to cook through. All right, that's all the garlic, and that's just starting to build a little bit of heat. And see how that's just starting to colour? See that lovely little puffed golden brown? Little pinch of salt at this stage. Now, those onions will probably take around 20 minutes to cook. Next up, we're going to do the pomme souffle or the potato souffle. And essentially what these are is a little puffed potato chip. That's what they look like. So we'll start that. And then what you need is a new seasoned potato with a high water content, with not a lot of sugar in it. Now, these are Dutch creams. And what I'm just doing is creating some nice little squares across the grain on the potato. And then I want to slice them through the mandolin so they're a particular thickness. And that is about 2 mil, all right? And then you're going to dry them on a tea towel and create a dry, starchy surface for the potato. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drop these potatoes into 1 pot of fat. Now, it's vegetable oil, all right? Now, the temperature of the oil must sit between 100 and 120. Because what you're effectively doing is you're blanching the potato. Aaron, you got a question?
Yeah, to try and keep your temperature more exact, could you do that in the deep fryer and actually just use the
The problem with the deep fryer is it doesn't allow you to agitate the potatoes. And this is something I learned when I was an apprentice. If you just put it in the fryer, they just sit there. And what you're looking for is little bubbles on the surface of those potatoes as they start to cook. You don't want a few, you want lots, all right? And the next process is to then throw those little bubbly potatoes into hot fat. And it's that explosion of heat that takes that little bit of moisture that's been brewing away in that cooking potato to expand quickly into steam and to puff the potato. Let's see what happens with these.
Wow. That's really cool.
And I'm smiling now because I'm going, thank goodness they worked. You can just see they're taking on that lovely golden colour. They look beautiful. OK, now back to the onions. What we've got is this lovely caramelisation, this golden brown, and we've pretty much been able to caramelise all of those surfaces. So it's a sprinkle of sugar, just let it build some heat and melt around the onions. Another little pinch of salt, because we talk about seasoning progressively throughout the dish, and a little pinch of pepper. And then finally, the sweet red wine vinegar. So just reduce the temperature so that those onions just bubble away really gently. And then I'm going to pop on a little paper lid or a cartouche. And what that will do is just create a barrier so the steam doesn't escape but bounces back into the onions and helps them cook. So gentle simmer for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have gorgeous, beautiful, sweet, soft onions and garlic. Now, George, you're making the next step. Over to you.
Gary showed you an oldie but a goodie with the pomme souffle. I'm going to show you a little oldie and a goodie, something I learned when I was an apprentice, a simple parsley and spinach puree. Right, first step, very simple. Golden shallot, yeah, golden shallot, finely diced. We dice that right up to the root. Little bit of garlic, 2 thin slices, just give that a smash. Done. Pan on, about a tablespoon worth of butter. Shallots go in and our garlic. We don't want any colour, so just sweat that down so it's nice and translucent. And we start bringing out all that beautiful sweetness. At that point there, we pour in about 150 mils of cream. We just want that to reduce down really gently. And this will form the base to our parsley puree. Never use curly parsley for anything apart from this puree, and that's it. Really important that you pick the stem off, okay? I've literally just got that curly parsley top on. You can see the cream starting to thicken, right? So that's been literally, you know, 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. You can just pull that to the side, all right, and that's ready to go. Boiling salted water. Yeah, must taste of the sea. Parsley goes in first because that's going to take the longest to cook, all right? So I've got about a half a bunch of parsley here that I'm going to use. You'll know when this is cooked because what you're going to do is pull a piece out and it's got to pretty much break in between your fingers. All right, I think we're nearly there. Let me just have a look. So, yeah, look at that. See, it's starting to just break down on my fingers. That's ready to rock and roll. So at this point, we throw some English spinach in. The spinach will take 15 seconds in boiling water to cook. We've got some ice water here so we can shock it immediately so it doesn't continue cooking. At that point, we'll take it over to the sink and strain that right out. Into the ice water. Just make sure you agitate it around so it's cooling down. All right. You just squeeze all that juice out. You need to get this as dry as possible, guys. Take clean towel, pop that in the center, and just wrap that up. Look at that, that was like half a bunch of parsley and a half a bunch of spinach. Okay, then our cream mixture that we've reduced down, and we just flick in all of this blanched parsley and spinach. And we're just going to gently cook this into the cream. Next step, we've incorporated the cream with the spinach and the parsley. We're going to pop that into our blender here and blend that up. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. I think parsley, pepper and spinach are a great combination. That is ready to rock and roll.
So the next step is to cook the steak and the kidneys. Now, a few of you had problems with the kidneys, but they're gorgeous. They really are nice. You just need to know how to handle them. What they do is filter the bad stuff out of our bodies and create urine. So they taste of that uric acid. Now, the way to get rid of that is to degorge them or soak them. You can either do that in an acidulated water with lemon or vinegar, or you can do it in milk, which has that sort of softening effect in terms of the flavour. Now, George, you've got those soaking in milk?
Yep, soaking in milk.
How long have they been in there?
Look, 24 hours.
Now we need to find a little volunteer, and I'll find that volunteer, who maybe struggled a little bit during the challenge. Alvin, do you want to come up? Let's have a go at preparing these kidneys. What we're going to do is we're going to open them up. So just push your hand down and go into the centre of the kidney and open it up. It's like a little star. Then you just lift that little sinew out. Okay? It's the sort of thing when I think about kidneys as a kid, the fact that they were chewy and had those bits in them put me right off it. If you learn how to prepare them properly and take out that sinew, they take on a new dimension, which is what it's all about. That's it. Alvin, you should have been a surgeon. Look at that. Hands are bloodied, you may return.
We've got some flank steak, and this is absolutely gorgeous, this stuff. So now we'll just marinate them up, just really simply. We're just going to slice some garlic, pick a little bit of thyme. Just going to flick that on there. Some olive oil, some pepper, and that's really it. There's no fuss to it. Hot grill pan, all right? And because I've oiled this, I don't need to oil the pan. And that will take about 2.5 minutes on both sides with about a 2.5 minute rest. And that will cook that nice and medium rare.
George, while you're cooking your steak, I'll grill the bread for our steak sandwich.
Brilliant.
So they get lightly oiled and then just onto the grill plate, just to take on a little bit of a char, and then we'll flip them over and we're almost ready to go.
Right, guys, that's been 2.5 minutes, so I'm just going to flip the steak over and give it another 2.5 minutes on that side. So after we've flipped it over, I'm just going to pop these kidneys on. We'll cook a few extra for everyone to eat. Right, guys, these kidneys have been on for about a minute, and that's literally all they take. Flick them over, and literally by the time I've flicked over the first one and get to the last one, I can literally start pulling these off.
See, I think they smell absolutely gorgeous. They're beautiful.
That pepper really adds a lovely flavour to it, doesn't it? Smell and aroma.
But also that little marinade of thyme and garlic has made an enormous amount of difference. And it just goes to show that, you know, a little ingredient like that can make such a big difference.
Right, our steak's been on the other side for 2.5 minutes, so a total of about 5 minutes on the grill pan. We'll rest that for about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, ready to carve and serve.
And then, just to finish these onions, you see what's happened? The sweet vinegar's reduced around the onions, and you get this absolutely gorgeous glaze. And the way to test them is they should be nice and soft. You should just be able to push your knife into them, a nice bit of give. And all I do is take that off the heat and just put, and you know it, a tiny little bit of butter.
You know it.
Just to round off those very sharp flavours. Just a tiny bit. Right, so these beautiful crostini are done. So they're over to you, George. And don't forget, big, strong flavours like parsley and garlic work really well with offals.
Nice thin slices. Because it is a more chewy type of meat, the thinner you cut it, the more palatable it becomes. So there you go. That's how the kidney should be, nice and pink inside.
They're delicious. So we put a couple of strips on.
Yeah.
How's that? All right?
Beautiful colour.
And kidney on top. And then we've got these lovely glazed onions. Oh. And there you have it. Sexy little steak and kidney sandwich with parsley puree and pomme souffle. My top tips for the steak sandwich, and more specifically, the pomme souffle. First one is picking the right potato. Remember, new season, low sugar, high water. The second one is about the 2 temperatures of oil. Remember, the first one is blanching and creating that little skin, and that is 100 to 120 degrees. The second one is about creating steam and puffing that potato up. It needs to be hot, so it's 185 degrees.
Top tips for kidneys. When you grill them, make sure you keep them nice and pink, or they will dry out and end up like rubber bullets. Parsley puree. Really important when you make that you cook that parsley in boiling water until it breaks up in between your fingers. And then you'll end up with a really beautiful, smooth puree.
So we need a couple of tasters for our steak sanger. Alvin, Matthew, and Joanne. You might want to cut a little chunk of that sanger off. Take a slice. Let's get stuck in. I know you want to eat the kidney, but here, look, we'll cut you a little bit.
I think all the textures and the flavours, the caramelised onion and garlic and the parsley puree, and everything works perfectly.
You get through to that steak and then the parsley puree as well. It's like going through all the different layers on top of that.
If anyone can convert me to eat kidneys, it's you guys. Yeah, they were beautiful.
That's good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
I'll
guys.
take that for the guys. Sharing is caring.
Sharing and caring.
It's very caring. You can share that.
To me, in Australia, when you think of cheese, you think of Will Studd. He's one of the most knowledgeable people on cheese. He is the big cheese.
Good morning. You must be Callum.
Nice to meet you.
And you must be Shani.
Nice to meet you, Will.
How do you do?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Well, I'm Will Studd, and I'm a master of cheese, apparently.
For the last 3 decades, I've travelled the world looking at artisan and farmhouse cheeses. I've written a couple of books, I have a TV series called Cheese Slices, and I think I'm a really lucky man when it comes to my career. Welcome to Simon Johnson, which I thought would be a great place to have a masterclass because Simon Johnson has all these wonderful international and domestic farmhouse cheeses. Today we're just going to look at the basics of different types of cheese and 2 recipes, a baked clarines fondue from the Swiss Alps.
Yum.
The most important thing when it comes to understanding cheese is to understand that it is simply preserved milk. And when we talk about preserved milk, we put cheese into various categories, and we start with the very freshest categories, and we work all the way through to cheeses that are very hard and keep for a long time. It's really that simple. I actually pick out 6 categories. There's lots of different ways to do it. The first one is fresh cheese. Cheese that is very high in moisture, doesn't keep for a very long period of time. Can you think of any cheeses that would fit into that?
Oh, the goat's curd.
Yeah, very good.
Maybe a mozzarella or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's right. I've got a little plate here of fresh cheeses. You've got the fresh goat's cheese here. You've got feta, okay? This is barrel-ripened feta. We've got halloumi, very ancient cheese going back, you know, a few thousand years. And we've got a mozzarella. And this is not just any old mozzarella. Guess what milk this is made from?
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Yay, that's it. Good, good, good. Would you like a try?
I'd love to.
Okay, try that.
Thank you.
Tell me what you taste.
Definitely quite salty.
I think there's kind of a bit of sourness to it.
Yeah, mossy flavour. But that's fantastic when you put it with olive oil and tomatoes and stuff like that. The next category of cheeses, which is mould surfaced ripened cheese. You're talking about bries and camemberts and all those sorts of cheeses. And essentially what happens is this mould on the outside is responsible for ripening the cheese over a period of time, somewhere between 45 and 60 days. And this cheese here is from the Alps on the French-Swiss border. And we're going to be cooking with this cheese a little bit later on, okay? So the next category of cheese is soft washed rind cheeses. And they're washed with a bacteria which goes bright orange, and it's called bee linens. But the distinctive thing about these cheeses, apart from the fact that they tend to be orange, is they stink. Tell me what you smell. Remind you of that old school locker?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Certainly got a fairly distinctive aroma to it.
I would say feet.
Hey, that's it, yeah. So that's the characteristic. And the more a cheese smells, often the better it tastes. So the next category of cheese that we're going to look at is blue cheese. The blue moulds are introduced as the cheese is made. It's then put on the shelf for maybe a month or two, and the cheesemaker puts a hole inside the cheese, and the cheese starts to go blue. But the secret of all blue cheese is Penicillium roqueforti mould, which was discovered in the caves of Roquefort over 2,000 years ago. And so when we talk about Roquefort being the granddaddy of all blue cheeses, it's one of the oldest cheeses known to man today. And it's a classic benchmark when it comes to judging blue cheese. So what do you think?
I like that the mould gives the cheese that little bit of crunch and it adds a different texture dimension.
It's got heaps of depth. And that's what you get with raw milk cheeses. Heaps and heaps of flavour. The next category of cheese is the most popular cheese in Australia. It's basically semi-hard cheeses, things like Edam, Gouda, and most importantly of all, cheddar. Cheddar represents something like 65, 70% of all the cheese enjoyed in Australia. And a long, long time ago, most cheddar was made with a cloth on it, like this one here. And why cloth is important to recognising good cheddar, what it allows the cheese to do is gradually dry out. That allows the moisture out of the cheese, but it also allows the cheese to draw in fresh air. And that's very important when you want to create flavour. The last category of cheese is what we call hard cooked cheese. And really what we're talking about is the big mountain cheeses, Gruyere, Emmental. Those are cheeses where the curds are basically heated up so they shrink, and then they're pressed very hard for a long period of time. So that means they keep a long, long time. And basically what that tells you about that category of cheese and about the whole preservation process is the more moisture left in a cheese, the shorter the time it will keep for, and the less moisture kept in a cheese, the longer time it'll keep for. The other cheese that fits into this category is one of the greats of the cheese world. It's Parmigiano Reggiano, which is, of course, Parmesan. And you can always recognise that by this little dot mark on the outside which says Parmigiano Reggiano. So my top tips are, when it comes to buying cheese, always try and taste it first. You're looking for flavour. The next tip, when it comes to serving cheese, take it out of the fridge at least 3 hours before you're going to serve it. Cover it with a damp cloth, and just before you serve it, take the damp cloth off the top, and you should have cheese at the optimum temperature.
Next up in Masterclass, we're going to take a look back at the vegetarian invention test that you did earlier on in the week. You had 3 core ingredients, which were tofu, goat's cheese, and eggplant. And we've chosen eggplant today to demonstrate a beautiful vegetarian dish. Now, to help us with that, we're going to bring back to the MasterChef kitchen a good friend of ours, restaurateur and chef Kylie Kwong.
Kylie Kwong is very much a hero for me, so to have her in the kitchen and be learning from her and her cooking styles is an amazing experience.
Hello. How are you? Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
It's like a dream come true for me. Like, you know, you idolize someone so much, and when you get to sit and, you know, like basically absorb all her cooking methods, and, you know, it's fantastic.
So, Kylie, what's the dish you're going to be cooking for us today?
This is stir-fried eggplant with homemade chili sauce and Szechuan pepper and salt.
So what's the first job?
I'm going to salt the eggplant.
OK.
So I've just got a couple of medium-sized eggplants, all right? And I'll just trim off the core, like that. And I'll just slice it down the middle. And then I'm just going to do sort of irregular shapes like so. So they're about 2 to 3 inch sort of irregular pieces. It's important to make sure they are a similar size, so when we are actually cooking them in the wok, they all cook at the same time.
Lovely.
OK? It's sort of like a roll cut. So I make an incision, and then I'm turning the eggplant to the left, and I'm turning it that way. So you get all these wonderful irregular angles.
It's beautiful.
OK? And then I'm going to salt the eggplant. So a couple of tablespoons of good quality salt, OK?
What's the minimum amount of time that you could leave that? So if you're doing it at home and you wanted to salt your eggplant to take away those bitter juices and take some of the water away, what's the minimum amount of time, do you think?
Half an hour is the minimum time.
OK.
Yep. I'm going to make the homemade chilli sauce next, OK? So what I've done is I've roughly chopped 6 fresh red chillies, all right? I've roughly chopped about 10 cloves of garlic, OK?
That's a lot
and
of garlic.
I've roughly chopped about, you know, a good root of ginger.
OK.
All right?
Beautiful. So we've got our chilli, garlic, ginger, and there's half a cup of peanut oil. What happens next? OK, I'm just heating a wok, OK? I'll put the peanut oil in, and I'll just heat that up until it's sort of slightly rippling on the top. That's how I know it's hot enough. Now, I love using peanut oil in my cooking because of that nutty, smoky aroma that it imparts. If you are allergic to peanut oil, which a lot of people are, I suggest you use some type of vegetable oil with a little dash of sesame, OK? The oil is starting to shimmer on the top, so I know that it's hot enough, OK? I don't want it to be piping hot because I don't want my garlic and my ginger to be brown, OK? But I want it to be hot enough so it sort of releases all of the aromas of the ginger and the garlic and the chilies. Okay. That smells absolutely amazing.
And I've just chopped the chilies up, you know, as they are with the seeds in, and you all know that the seeds in the chili are the hottest part of the chili.
Now that's a long red chili.
That's a long red chili.
You wouldn't want to put the little short hot chilies in there because that's fairly mild, isn't it?
This is sweeter than it is spicier, but if you are a chili lover, I'd suggest dropping in a few little, you know, tiny ones, bird's eye chilies or the scud chilies that you find in the Thai shops.
And another question I was going to ask as well is this ginger looks really young.
Beautiful.
You know, how do you know when ginger's good?
When ginger's really young, it's got this lovely sort of pink tinge to the skin. And in fact, I use this in the restaurant, and often I don't even peel the skin because it's so tender.
Yeah.
All right? So you can really start to smell those beautiful aromas now. And what I'm going to do is just turn that down to a medium heat, and I'll let that sort of saute for about 5 minutes. This chilli sauce looks like it's ready to go now. It's got a sort of jammy look, so the oil's separated a little bit.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is just add the tamari now for flavour. So a little bit of soy flavour, okay? In Japan, there are two types of soy. There's tamari, which is traditionally used with sashimi, and then there's also the shoyu, which is like the all-purpose soy sauce. I love using tamari in this because it's a little bit more robust in flavour, and because of the robust, meaty nature of the eggplant, it needs a sauce to match with it so that can stand up to it.
Beautiful. Now, the eggplant's been sitting here salting for half an hour.
Yep.
Is that ready to rinse?
That's ready to rinse.
Okay. And look at that. Look at that amount of
look at
water
all of the water that's come out of
that.
it.
So that's going to get washed?
Yes.
So what happens if you don't wash the eggplant?
If you don't wash the eggplant, you're just going to get a mouthful of salt.
Salt, because of the salt that you sprinkled on the top. So
Yes.
that's really important.
Yes. You want to give it a really good pat so you get all of that water out so it doesn't spit up at you when you're frying it in the oil.
And that's pretty important. You say that quite casually because you've done it lots of times, but if you put wet eggplant into hot oil, then you're going to have big problems. You're going to have a fire or it's going to spit everywhere.
That's right. To cook the eggplant, 5 tablespoons of peanut oil, all right? We've got the eggplant absolutely dried. I'm waiting until the oil shimmers on the top, okay?
No, because that's quite important, isn't it? Because if it's
Yes.
not hot enough, what will happen?
If it's not hot enough, the eggplants will just soak up all of that oil and they'll become greasy.
Yeah.
Okay, so in we go. There you go, that's the sound we want. If it's any less than that, it's not hot enough. Okay? What I'm doing is browning the eggplant. I want a beautiful golden brown sort of, you know, result, as well as cooking the eggplant in the middle, all right? So we'll just let that do its thing for 10 minutes. We'll stir it occasionally. Now I'm going to call upon Mr. Aaron to come up and help me roast the Szechuan peppercorns. Let's put that there. Okay, it's important to roast any dry spices because that intensifies the flavour. So what I do is I dry roast the Szechuan peppercorns with salt flakes.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
So let's put about a tablespoon of Szechuan peppercorns in the skillet and about half of this, which is about 3 tablespoons of salt. So on the stove, it will only take a few minutes. The salt will start to turn an ashy colour and the peppercorns, sort of interestingly enough, start popping like popcorn, okay? But what you've got to do is sort of stand over them and agitate it for a few moments. So you don't want them to burn, but you also have to leave them on the heat, okay? Give my eggplant a bit of a whirl. You can see the eggplant, it's becoming all beautiful and crunchy on the outside and velvety and silky in the middle. And you can see the oil in there. We mustn't be scared of the oil. In Chinese cuisine, we like using oil. The oil will actually form part of the dressing, if you like, the overall sauce, okay? You can hear them popping and you can see that the salt's turned that ashen colour, okay? So I think they're ready. What we need to do is pour them into a cold dish now so the cooking process is stopped, okay? We'll let those cool down first before you grind them up because they'll turn mushy,
No
all
problem.
right?
That smells.
Smells incredible.
Absolutely incredible.
So pour it all in, yep. Give it a good going over, yep, that's right. And I always put my mortar and pestle on a cloth on the bench so you don't dent the bench and so you don't sort of slide everywhere.
Yep.
Okay, so that's enough, so we'll pour that back in there.
Yep.
So everyone can see. Yep.
Now, what are we going to do with the spring onions and the coriander?
I've just finely sliced the spring onions and I'm going to do the same with the coriander and then we're ready to put the dish together, okay? You'll see that I'm using the entire coriander root, stem and leaf. You know, the root is the strongest part and because we love all of the flavour and we don't want to waste anything, we're just going to cut up the whole bunch.
Well, I think, Aaron, you've had your Szechuan pepper lesson. We'll get you back up to taste the dish in a minute.
Great, thank
All
you
right,
so much.
Thank you.
All right.
So how's the eggplant going now?
The eggplant is cooked, it's golden brown and it's beautiful and velvety inside and silky, okay? So I'm just going to mix the homemade chilli with the eggplant, all right? All of it, because we want spice and heat in this dish.
Look at them gasping. Why are you gasping?
Okay.
There's a lot of chilli in there for one dish, so...
But it's the actual size of the chilies. These chilies are quite sweet, so don't be alarmed.
panic.
Yeah. So the coriander, okay? The way I use fresh herbs, I don't use them as a garnish, I use them as part of the dish, an integral part of the dish, okay? And there's a little bit of oil there in that eggplant, but that will all be soaked up in the shallots and the coriander as well, and that will all form part of the sauce.
Wow.
And then what we'll do is we'll plate it up,
You know what I love about that is that there's so much spring onion and coriander. I don't think most people would consider using it as a flavour as you have done. They'd sprinkle it over the top.
What I love about this dish too is not just the eggplant, but all the little bits. You know, when you eat this, you've got a little bit of chilli, a little bit of coriander, and the little bits of ginger and garlic. And then you sprinkle it with Szechuan pepper and salt. Okay, so imagine the numbing, tingling, spicy, aromatic flavour in this dish. And you'll see this lovely orange oil that comes out. You know, just mop that up with your bread or your rice.
That is absolutely amazing. It smells gorgeous. And Kylie, what are your top 3 tips with this beautiful dish?
Well, the first tip, of course, is to salt the eggplant, which will extract the bitter juices from the eggplant and extract liquid from the eggplant, so when we do put it in that hot oil, it's not going to soak up all of the oil. The second one is to dry roast the Szechuan peppercorns, because when you dry roast spices, you intensify the flavour. The third tip is whenever you're cooking in a wok to have all of your ingredients ready to go, pre-cut, because as soon as you turn the wok on, things happen quite quickly. You don't want to be stopping and starting during the cooking process and interrupting the energy, so to speak. So be prepared. Who would like to taste this?
Oh, look at all those hands. Adam, Marion, Aaron?
Is it all right?
That was amazing.
Is it? All those little bits that give it lots of texture and make the mouthful so interesting.
I think I need to be more confident with the amount of spring onion that I'm adding to the thing.
Yeah, sure.
What do you taste, Mary?
Oh, it's just that chilli and the coriander. And I have to say, eggplant is not one of my favourite vegetables. Whenever I cook it at home, it doesn't work out. But now, tasting this, it's just amazing.
Would you cook that again?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm loving the looks on your faces. I'm just standing here and it's a little moment, isn't it, where you discover something new and now it's going to become part of your repertoire, and that's good to see. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Sit
much.
back down.
Really appreciate it.
Where are you going with that, Adam?
Look at how jealous they all look.
We have to thank Kylie Kwong for coming in and cooking for us.
Thank you.
And hopefully you'll come and visit us again soon. Thanks, Kylie.
Love to. Thank you.
Well, guys, now we're going to get into our cheese cooking masterclass. I've got 2 really, really simple recipes for you. The first one is baked clarines. Now, clarines is a soft cheese, and you can see on the top here, it's got a mouldy rind across the top. So, the first step is to take some garlic. And I'm just going to take this clove and cut it into 5 pieces. Now, this garlic we're going to blanch. And to blanch it, quite simple, throw it into this pot, some boiling water, pour it over the top, and leave it for a minute. The reason to blanch it is if you just put garlic straight into the cheese, you'd find it would be quite crunchy and very garlicky. Just drain this off. What we're going to do is we're going to make a little incision in the cheese, and we're just going to pop the garlic in the hole, like that. We keep going like that. See how easy it is? Mm-hmm. I learnt this recipe originally from a camembert recipe, believe it or not. But it works really, really well with this cheese. So once we've done that, got 5 pieces of garlic in the top. So I'll put this onto a baking tray. I've got some wine here. It doesn't really matter what wine you use. You can use red or white wine. So we're just going to pour that over the top of the cheese. Not too much. Look at that. And that'll slowly seep down into the cheese, flavouring it as it goes. And when we put it in the oven, it'll also keep the cheese moist. And what we've got here is some thyme. Then the last step with this is just some pepper across the top. And then we pop it in the oven, 185 degrees, for about 20 minutes. But it's worth keeping an eye on, because if it gets too hot, the cheese will just go everywhere and the box will burn. And look at that. What do you think?
It's delicious.
Just the smell of it when you were bringing it out of the oven was awesome.
So, the moment of truth. Your turn to try it. Wasn't difficult to cook. Come and have a try.
So we just dunk some of the bread in?
The way to do it, yeah, let's put some bread in. No, stop pussyfooting around. Look, it's like this, okay? Okay? That's it, like that, you know? Watch it, it's pretty hot. What do you reckon? Rock your world?
That's amazing. I think you could win people's hearts with that. Because you can really taste everything that you put in as well, like, but nothing's overpowering. Like, there's just the garlic there and the red wine and the thyme. Yeah, it's beautiful.
What do you reckon?
I think if you served it at a party, it'd kind of be one of those moments where the whole room would go quiet. Everyone would just be dipping in for the hot cheese. So I could see why it'd go down very well.
So, top 3 tips for my baked clarines recipe. 1, blanch the garlic. 2, use red or white wine and thyme. And 3, don't leave it in the oven too long, because you can imagine what happens if the box burns and it goes everywhere. Simple. So guys, here's the next recipe. It goes back thousands of years to the Alps. Its name is fondue. And it's a perfect dish for those really cold winter days. And this dish actually began as a way of using up old cheese, leftover wine, and stale bread. The starting point is this fondue pot here, piece of garlic. Very simply what we're going to do with this, crush it, like that, and then I'm just going to wipe that around the bowl. So we'll just drop that off. Now, this is our cooking implement. And the first thing we're going to put in here is 450 mils of white wine. Now, you can imagine people sitting around a table doing this. And the first step is to sit there for the next 5 or 6 minutes, right, waiting for this to gently warm up until this starts to almost simmer. Not quite simmer, because you don't want the wine to start evaporating, but until it's fairly hot. Because otherwise, when you put the cheese in, it won't melt. So I've taken 800 grams of Comté and just grated it up. We're just going to add a couple of handfuls and let it melt in the bottom of the pan here. And the other most important thing about fondue is that it will burn unless you keep stirring it. So this is starting to melt nicely now. So I'm just going to add some more cheese. What you're looking for is a nice, smooth sauce that will coat the bread, but not something that's so skinny it just falls off, and not something so thick that when you put the bread in, it sort of sticks in there and you can't get it out. Cheesy bliss. Okay? Okay, this looks almost done. So far, pretty easy. Take the bread. Now, imagine you're doing this as a group, and everyone has a fork. Okay, so what you do is you drop it in to the fondue pot, figure of 8, because as this cheese mixture slowly depletes, what happens is that the tendency for it to burn will become greater the lower it drops. I'll give you that one.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Oops.
Oh.
What do you think? Hot?
Beautiful. It's very strong cheese. I didn't expect such a strong flavour, but that's absolutely gorgeous.
One of the great things about food is sharing, and just being around a table with friends and having a fondue pot, I think it's a great idea. Tastes good too.
So the top 3 tips for fondue is 1, start with good cheese. Can't make a good fondue without good cheese. Second tip is make sure that you stir it properly. And third tip, make sure you've got enough room for the last bite, because that's the best bit. Well, that's the end of my masterclass. I hope you've enjoyed it. Gary and George are waiting for you back in the kitchen. I wish you the very best of luck with the future. And before you go, I've got a little present for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for today. I learned so much.
So generous with your knowledge. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, it's a real pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This week's team challenge was absolutely huge. It was all about experimental food, progressive food. The aim was to excite our senses, and you had 2 themes. One of them was carnival, and the other, beach. I think you guys did an absolutely wonderful job, but I think there was an area that you guys were lacking in, and that was the desserts. So today I've decided to bring in someone who's very close to my dessert brain. And yes, he is my pastry chef consultant to the Press Club restaurant. Please welcome, for me, one of the best pastry chefs in this country, Darren Purchese.
I'm Darren Purchese, pastry chef and one half of Birch & Purchase. My food philosophy is to highlight and enhance beautiful natural ingredients and products and to provide the ultimate dining experience for the customer.
Darren, welcome to the MasterChef kitchen.
Thanks, George.
I can't wait for you to lift the lid on that. Can you do us
Absolutely.
the honour?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
This is my fruit carnival.
That looks absolutely sensational.
Thanks, George.
So guys, today Darren's going to demonstrate for you some of the components on this beautiful carnival dessert. What's the first step?
It's best if we get the sugar on for the raspberry and neutral sugar tube. So we have 300 grams of isomalt. Basically, isomalt is a sugar substitute. It contains half the calories of sugar. And the reason I use this is for its anti-crystallizing properties and so that I can achieve a caramel without color. Next to go in is 300 grams of caster sugar. The reason I'm doing a mix is because I want the sweetness of sugar with the anti-crystallizing properties of the isomalt. Next is 60 grams of liquid glucose. And finally, we're going to add around 50 grams of water.
Okay, so you pop everything into the pan and then turn the gas on?
Yep, that's right. And we are going to take it to around 158 degrees.
Around 158 degrees.
So we're just going to pour half of this onto the non-stick mat, just to cool down. Very hot, as you can see.
So you need to be really careful.
And the remainder, we're going to colour with this titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is a naturally occurring whitener. At Wimbledon, it's what they use to make the lines on the grass. It's also used in commercial food production to whiten marshmallows and candies.
Wow. Alvin, question?
How much titanium dioxide did you add? Is there a ratio?
I added 7 grams of titanium dioxide to that mix.
So it's gone white.
Then we're going to pour it onto this mat. And we're going to let both those cool down. But before the first sugar cools, we're going to flavour it with freeze-dried raspberry powder.
So you just tip that over the top?
That's right. And then we'll just leave it to cool.
You wouldn't put them in the fridge, would you?
No, the fridge will have too much moisture, so you kind of want to just cool it down at room temperature. You don't want to be attempting to blitz this while it's still warm, or your blender will probably have a few troubles.
Now, these sugars are going to form the outside, the tulle that's going to encase the ice cream. What's the next step?
We need to turn both of these sugars into a really fine powder, 2 separate powders. And to do that, we're going to use a very high-power blender. We're just going to break the sugar up first.
Wow, it's like glass, isn't it?
It is. I think that's what they use in Hollywood to make the bottles smash.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah? Wow, look at that.
So we're just going to get them into the blender.
Yep.
And we're going to try and get this as fine as possible.
Okay. Fantastic. Is there a reason why you do the white powder first, then the red?
Absolutely. I don't want to wash the bowl. So if we're doing the red first, we have to wash the bowl, and then we're going to introduce moisture and all the things that are bad for sugar.
There you go.
pink sugar.
You've blended up your 2 sugars here. Now it's actually time to make that sugar tulle that's going to encase that ice cream.
That's right.
What have you got here to make them?
Okay, these are stencils that I've made out of ice cream lids in my spare time. It saves money. We've got a rectangle, and then we've got a slightly larger rectangle with diagonal strips cut out.
You're starting to get the idea of how it's going to come together?
So the first step is on a cool tray with a non-stick mat, is to lay the smaller rectangle, and then we're going to dust the white sugar in the shape and the form of the rectangle. You want to make sure that you cover all the holes. Now we're going to carefully lift the stencil from the mat. Okay, we're going to melt this now in the oven, which has been preheated to 155 degrees. It should take about 4 or 5 minutes.
Marion?
How long would those powders last? Is it something you could make the day before and then tap it out the next day, or?
If you keep them in a sealed container with desiccant, such as silica gel, these will last for a long time. Okay, we're going to bring the sugar out the oven. And this is looking like it's just about ready to go. We'll just cool this down for a few seconds.
Yep.
And then using the larger stencil, we're going to dust over the raspberry sugar. And then it's back into the oven one more time before we shape it into a tube. Easy. Okay, we're just going to clean up the edges of this tube. It's easier to do that before it's cooked rather than afterwards. So we'll just take a pastry scraper and we'll just get rid of any excess bits of sugar. So I'm going to put this back into the oven for the last time.
Brilliant.
Again, all we're doing is melting the sugar.
Yep.
So it's already been cooked, and we're going to leave that in there for about 2 or 3 minutes.
Now, explain to me, Darren, the next step is to make it look like a cannelloni, so to speak. How are you going to achieve
That's
that?
right. I've brought in some metal tubes. I've lightly sprayed these with spray grease. And what we need to do is wrap the sugar around this tube. And I'll show you how to do that in a second.
Oh, wow. That looks fantastic.
The important thing is now is I need to flip this over because obviously I want the stripes on the outside. I've just got one of these like step palette knives and I'm just gonna lift the sugar and we're gonna flip it over. While it's warm, we're gonna attempt to roll. Obviously, if it's too hot, it's gonna stick to the tube. If it's too cold, it might crack. So you need to be very careful.
Wow.
That's the sugar tube.
Right, guys, so we're making a fantastic dessert inspired by the carnival and, of course, by pastry chef extraordinaire Darren Purchese. We've made that beautiful sugar tulle that's going to encase the ice cream. What's the next step?
We're just going to pop this away for safekeeping. And we're going to move on to the next stage, which is the aerated fruit salad chocolate. First of all, we've got a pan of simmering water, and we're going to add into a metal bowl 350 grams of white chocolate. We're going to place this over the water, a bain-marie, and we're going to melt this chocolate gently to no more than 40 degrees. Chocolate doesn't respond well to extremes of temperature. It's always best to treat chocolate with care.
Now, while you're melting that chocolate, what have you got here?
Okay, so we've got mandarin segments, we've got raspberry, whole raspberries, and we've got passion fruit powder, all in a freeze-dried state. These are great when working with chocolate because they don't contain any moisture whatsoever, so it's not going to seize your chocolate.
Right, what's happened here, Darren?
Okay, I've taken the chocolate off the stove. It's not quite melted, but the heat in the bowl will take care of the rest of those lumps. The next stage is to melt cocoa butter, 150 grams of cocoa butter. The reason we're adding that to the chocolate is to just loosen it and make it a little bit more fluid. Okay, so this is just about finished melting, and then we're going to add this mixture to the chocolate. If you could stir that, George.
Yeah.
And this is just going to loosen the chocolate, which will facilitate putting it in the siphon.
All right.
Wicked. Okay. We're going to use one of these siphon guns.
Yeah.
To try and get all of the aeration into the chocolate. Always make sure the siphon gun is not too cold as well, because you don't want the chocolate setting as soon as you pour it in. And we're going to shake. Okay, the next step, we've placed a container in the blast freezer over there, so it's nice and cold.
That one there?
That's great. Thanks, George. Okay, first, I'm going to put the fruits into the bottom. There's about 5 grams there.
Yep.
And about the same of freeze-dried whole raspberry. And probably about 3 grams of passion fruit freeze-dried powder.
Brilliant. All right. Moment of truth. Off we go. Straight in the blast freezer?
Yes, please. Gently.
Yes,
Thank
Chef.
you, George. We're going to leave that to cool down as quickly as possible. We're going to trap all of the air inside the bubbles. And once it's cool, we're going to break it into the desired shape and size to use as garnish.
Would you use a normal freezer?
Yep, you could use a normal freezer. You could make this at home by maybe just discharging it into the freezer at home and just shutting the door carefully. We're lucky enough to have a blast chiller here, but it's by no means essential in this recipe.
The next step is to make that whimsical toffee apple.
The first stage is to make a caramel using white sugar, 350 grams, and water, 50 grams. And we're just going to give it a gentle stir just to make sure that it's mixed up and there's no lumps. And then we're going to bring it to the boil to make a caramel. And once it boils, we're going to add the glucose.
The apple, I guess, is an important part to the toffee apple. That's right. What needs to be done?
OK, we're going to peel the apple.
Yeah.
Neatly Parisienne, which means to scoop or ball, and then we're going to dip those in caramel. So perhaps, Matthew, if you'd like to come up and help us do the Parisienne. I know you're interested in the pastry side of things.
All right. Have you Parisienned apples before?
No.
Have you Parisienned anything before?
If it just means balling, then probably rock melon.
Yeah, maybe.
Something pretty basic.
All right, show us.
Oh, jeez.
The caramel has reached a boiling stage, so I'm going to add the glucose to the caramel. There's 50 grams of glucose to add.
Right, let's have a look at your ball. What do you reckon, Daz?
That's perfect. And maybe if you do 5 or 6 of those, we can show you how to get the effect. This sugar is starting to get colour now, so it will continue to cook. So what I'm going to do is turn it off and cool the sugar down slightly by pouring it into this pan. If you smell that caramel, that toffee flavour. OK, so I take one of these cocktail sticks.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to skewer the apple in the centre.
Yep.
So I'm just going to go in, pull it out gently. OK, and we should get a thread starting to form. And we'll let gravity take care of most of that sugar. So we'll pull off any excess. We don't like to eat thick caramel. And we should have like a really cool little garnish. Doesn't take long to cool when it's at this stage.
Brilliant, man. Matthew, you're up next, man.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Calm, Matt. No pressure.
Pull up, pull up.
Just let it. So you just flick it with your fingers, finger and thumb.
I'm looking at this, mesmerised by it.
I think it's just about ready. So just gently take it off and then flip it over.
Gentle, gentle.
Beautiful. what you can do, because it's still warm.
Well done, buddy. Good job. Yeah? Right, Darren, the final step, I guess, is to plate up and present this beautiful dish. Now, there's vanilla ice cream to go in there, correct?
That's right.
I'll grab that out of the fridge.
Thanks, George. I'm going to gently lay the jellies. We've got a coconut and a raspberry jelly. OK, next step, we need to fill the tube with the vanilla ice cream.
And this is the basic vanilla ice cream, yeah?
Yeah, this is a lovely vanilla ice cream that I made before. So we've just got it in a piping bag. It's just been churned off, so it's still nice and soft. I'm just going to pipe that gently into the sugar tube, and we'll dip the ends in the freeze-dried raspberry powder.
Yep.
We'll lay that on top of the jelly.
Right, the next step is the raspberries?
Yep, and perhaps if you can grab the aerated chocolate from the freezer.
Yep.
And it'll just pop out because it's contracted.
Wow.
We kind of get little air pockets, small little pieces of garnish that we can put onto the plate.
Wow.
It's really cool. All the air's been trapped inside and then frozen, and the freeze-dried fruits give it a really sharp finish.
Gorgeous.
We'll garnish the raspberries with some baby chervil, and then we'll use Matthew's Matthew's toffee apple just to finish the dish. There, and there we have it, the fruit carnival.
Well done. Darren, what are your top 3 tips to make this dessert?
Make sure you know the order of the components you're going to be making. The second tip for this would be never to heat your chocolate too high. Try and heat it gently. And my third tip would be just to really enjoy your cooking, because I think if you enjoy it and love it, that will be reflected on the plate at the end. So good luck, everyone.
Hey.
My goodness. That is absolutely magnificent. Were you enthralled?
Yeah, amazing.
I'm sure you don't want to taste it.
Jonathan, Matthew, and Claire.
Just eat the whole thing. Go for it.
It's good? Yeah.
You know what I love about this thing? Is that you get all the crunch of like a toffee, but not the sweetness.
Yeah,
it's really
great. Cool.
Claire, do you like it?
It's the best thing I've ever eaten. Amazing.
Very good.
There you go, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Might
Good
take
luck,
some of
guys.
these to my friends.
Darren Purchese, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm sure the guys have learned something today, and hopefully we'll use a couple of those tricks going forward into the competition.
But
thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you very much, George.
appreciate it.
Cheers, Gary.
Cheers.
Good luck, guys.
Thanks, Darren.
Well, that's been an absolutely massive masterclass. Loads and loads of tips and tricks to fill your little recipe books there. Special guests, you know, what more can you ask for? Absolutely amazing. Hope your minds are going crazy, and I think you now deserve a little something to eat. So come up to the bench, grab some food, and we'll celebrate. Callum and Shani just in time.
Hey!
Callum, we've had a big day here in the MasterChef kitchen. What about you?
Yeah, Will was inspiring. Just the way he talked about cheese, he was really excited.
Shani, did you enjoy today with Will Studd?
We had a fantastic day. Loved it.
Guys, I want you to take a moment and just think for a minute that you're now standing here as one of the top 10 amateur cooks in this country. It's a moment in time, and it's a moment that you should remember when we say we want you to be the best amateur cooks in this country. George and I want to be proud of that fact. So you make us proud, and you gather every bit of strength that you have, and you give next week everything you've got. Because remember, it's MasterChef, and it's only really just beginning. You gonna drink to that? Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Next time on MasterChef Australia.
Please welcome back to the MasterChef kitchen, Julie Goodwin.
Australia's first MasterChef returns with her very own hand-picked mystery box.
I'm really looking forward to this.
Then, the heat is on as the amateurs attempt to reinvent an Australian food icon.
I'm in a lot of strife.
Who will have the recipe for success for a shot at immunity?
I think I can give this challenge a red hot go.
Time is your enemy. Come on, Aussie. Come on.
With 10 hopefuls left, the stakes are higher than ever before.
And immunity at this stage is a very important thing to have. I definitely want to win this one.